Hi, Michael.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interview you.
Not at all. Not at all. It's a pleasure.
So friends, Michael is the name which doesn't need any introduction, yet I'm going to brief you a little bit about Michael. Michael is one of the pioneers in the NLP field. He is also a Marshall Goldsmith stakeholder-centered coach. He's a Richard Bandler NLP trainer and NLP coach trainer, and he's the director of Executive Coaching Global from UK. So thank you, Michael, once again for giving me this opportunity. And could you please tell, how did you get into NLP?
Oh, how did I get into NLP?
Yes.
I was working for British Telecom, which is the telecommunications company in the UK. I always had an interest in NLP. I went to my training manager and I said I was going to pay to go on an NLP training course, and he said, no, Mike, we'll send you on one, you just tell us what you think about it. So I ended up going on my first NLP course, and very luckily I actually got them to send me on 3 more. So I actually got sent through practitioner, master practitioner, and trainer. So sort of that got me onto it. The interesting thing was, though, I had an interest in NLP for a long time, but I heard some mixed stories about it. Because some people said it was brilliant, some people said it was evil. And
evil, this is the first
well,
time.
evil or worse, evil or worse. And I was sort of caught between the two. But in essence, I wish I had actually been on my first NLP training earlier, because I found that my hesitation wasn't useful.
Okay.
The hesitation was just hesitation. I wish I'd thrown myself in and given it a go and made my own mind up, because I found it very useful.
Wow.
So that's how I got in. That's how I got into it. And as I say, I was very lucky with BT, because they actually sent me on 3 courses. I got my trainer's trainer. And then when I left, I took a package and I had some money, and I had the situation of working with some of the best people around the world. So that was my sort of entree into NLP.
That's amazing. And Michael, since you're the early experts from NLP and all that, now we get to see 4 days workshop, 5 days workshop, 6 days workshop. How many days was your practitioner for?
My practitioner was 21 days, I think. I'm not sure I can get back there. I've done about 5 practitioners with different trainers.
Oh my God.
So, and what I find is interesting, I learned something from all of them. But in essence, if I was to have my time again, I'd probably spend more time choosing who I would train with. Because I think there is something about the relationship between the trainer and the student, or the trainer and whoever is doing the learning, that is important.
Amazing, amazing. Yes. So, Michael, different trainers, different definitions of NLP. So, how do you define NLP, Michael?
That's a very good question. I'm going to say there isn't a universal definition of NLP. There's 2 I use. The first is just looking at NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro is around how we take in information, which is mostly through our senses. Linguistic is about the power of language, but not only language as in words, language as in voice tone, as in rhythm, as in the other sorts of stuff. And programming as in habits. We as humans have lots of habits. Some have been built up from our parents, from our schools. Some of them are really useful. Some of them are spectacularly unuseful. And in many ways, to me, is sort of understanding the neuro bit, the linguistic bits, the habits bit, gives us a very good background to be able to develop ourselves better, and to encourage the good habits and to discourage the bad habits.
Wow.
So I find that a useful working model. The other one I use, and this is probably my most popular one, is Richard's, which is NLP starts with an attitude, which is normally of curiosity, because if we're not which is a curiosity of how things work. Because if we're not interested in how things work, we wouldn't get involved in NLP. So it's curiosity. Then it's about modeling what produces good and bad performance. And I say good and bad performance because sometimes learning how things don't work is tremendously useful because we can then change them to make them work. And the programming bit goes back to the habits. So it becomes, the programming, it then goes into, that lets us come up with techniques, and techniques let us improve stuff ourselves and communicate what we've learned through our modeling to other people so that they can improve what they do.
That's beautiful.
Okay. But I am going to emphasize NLP is a modeling approach, not necessarily a scientific approach. What's the difference? Modeling is interested in testing things and getting results, and then retesting them again and retesting them again, depending on environment. But we're not necessarily interested in the theory behind it. Science is very interested in the theory behind it. We don't really care. We're interested in getting results. Now, that means that NLP can be a much faster process because, as I say, our test does what we do, get results in a practical way.
Okay.
So that is my take. And there are a lot of implications from the fact that it's a modeling discipline, not necessarily a theoretical or a scientific discipline, because in essence, whenever I'm working with somebody, it's about what you're doing now. It's about understanding what you're doing now to get the results you get, and working out between us what you can do to get better results. So it's what you can stop doing or reduce doing, and what you can increase doing.
Very, very simple.
Yeah, the older I get, the simpler I get.
Yes. Okay. Michael, I have been of late listening on social media and from different experts that NLP is outdated. NLP is outdated. So could you please tell, because you have been exploring teaching and you have created so many trainers across the world. Is it true that NLP is outdated? What is your
I'm
answer?
going to disagree with that. And actually, I won't say I've created trainers. I've helped people on the road to trainers. I have to choose my words carefully there. The outdated thing is it's a silly comment. Sorry, there are lots of silly comments about NLP. That's what I say. When I first didn't do my first NLP training, I delayed it. It was because people were talking about an awful lot of nonsense about NLP, but it sounded good. But it turned out to be real nonsense. And what I found was, it's like looking at, when I looked at the comments people made, I suddenly realized they hadn't a clue what NLP was. They were just making comments about NLP that were repeated. It was like cliches being circulated around, which is fine, but it was unfortunate because it simply wasn't what NLP is. NLP is a modeling project. If I'm talking to you, I'm interested in what you're doing now, to help yourself, what you're doing now to hinder yourself. So per se, because it's a modeling discipline, it can't be outdated, because I'm continually updating what I'm doing based on what is happening now. Now, NLP techniques, which are the results of the modeling project, they will become out of date because things will change. But the basis of NLP is not techniques. The basic of NLP is modeling. It's being aware now what is going on, what is producing results at this exact moment in time.
That answers the question. Okay. And now, Michael, there are so many certifying bodies, and certification is a major thing. So what is your advice about this certification, and which body to choose?
Again, that's a really good question. My view is quite simple. I don't think the reason to do NLP is because of the certification of the piece of paper. The reason to do NLP is that you will gain skills that you can use that will change and improve your life. So I'm very strong on that. And I know a lot of people go for the certification, but in essence, to me, they're going for the tick in the box. And to me, that's a fixed mindset and not a growth mindset. The growth mindset is understanding what skills you need to thrive and how you develop those skills. And NLP is a very good way of developing some of the key skills that will help us succeed and thrive in life as it is today. So my view my view for choosing an NLP course is because you will get something out of it for you. Okay, point one. Point two is, if you're going to go for certification, go for, this is silly, but the prettiness of the certificate, so it looks good on the wall. Okay, don't worry about who's on it, just looks a pretty certificate. You can show it off to people. If you do want to go for the best training, my suggestion is gravitate to trainings where you get either Richard Bandler or John Grinner's signature on the certificate.
Okay.
I'm afraid that's my default is they started it, they understand what it was all about. So if I had a preference for certification, I would look for their signatures on the certificate, but that wouldn't be my top priority. My top priority would be the skills that I need to thrive in whatever context that I have.
Okay, that's amazing.
Okay. And of course, to be clear, I can't resist saying this. Of course, Richard countersigns all my certificates. So, but in essence, be a bit selfish. And actually, this means people have to do some work, because if they say, "Oh, this is, I'm going to go for this certification," they're almost saying, "I don't have to work out what works. I'm going to let this lot work out what works." But that's a default in life. I'm afraid one of my views in life is, actually, we're given all sorts of nonsense about how to live life. My view is we have to make up our own mind. And so my view is we really need to take responsibility for who trains us. And sometimes we'll be right, sometimes we're wrong, that's okay. Yes. But take some time and work out who you think will be the best trainer for you.
Thank you. That clarifies, Michael. Now, why do we give more importance to context in NLP than content?
Okay.
Why is it so?
Right. Firstly, I normally don't answer why questions, because why questions lead to opinions rather than facts. So I'm being a bit mischievous here. Why questions normally come to opinions, not facts, because you can't prove a why question. A why question is somebody's opinion. However, while saying that, I'm going to change your question a bit, because I think what we're really interested in is process rather than content. And there are times in life where the content is what the content is. Somebody is where they is. Somewhere in life is where they are. There ain't anything they can. They can't do anything about that themselves. But if they understand the process of how they got there, or the process of where they could go, how they could improve, then you're giving them some really useful information.
Okay.
So I think the process thing is really, really important, because we can get stuck, for say, into content, which means we actually get stuck. We can't change it. But if we start understanding the structure, how do people create problems? How do people create opportunities and results? Then we can replicate that, and that helps people a lot more. I may not have explained it right, but I think there's a very, very important point in this.
Okay.
We're interested in structures. And it's like, I'll give an example. When I started, somebody has a problem, you do some really great techniques, you solve the problem, but they immediately come up with another one, because they're very good at creating problems. So actually solving the content doesn't do anything, because you haven't solved the underlying structure that's causing the problem. Okay, and actually I'm going to add one more to that, and this comes from my Marshall stuff. People underestimate how powerful the environment we're in has on our behavior. So you can work hard with somebody, you can give them all the right stuff, but they go back into their environment, and their environment will undo everything you've done. The people who they're working with will not intentionally, will get them back doing what they were originally be doing. But if we understand sort of the processes and the structures of how problems are created and how problems are held in place, then we have a much better chance of helping clients change them and move forward.
Makes sense, Michael. Yeah. So Michael, I know there was this guy on Facebook. It said like 99% of the trainers, 90% of the trainings are fake. You are no more learning the original NLP. So this is what it is. So what are the, how can what when we choose a trainer? What are your suggestions? What kind of trainer do we
I'm
choose?
going to have to go back. I'm going to have to go back and ask you to repeat what you said right at the beginning, because you said some sentences that I found fascinating, but I didn't fully understand. So something about real NLP, or so just tell me a bit.
Real NLP is now not, you're not learning the original NLP, all this stuff.
Okay, let me turn it round and actually say, if you're learning stuff that helps you in your life, that
Yes.
is good. If you're learning stuff that helps you in your life and helps you move forward and achieve things that you couldn't achieve, this is good. Whether it's NLP or not NLP, I don't care.
Okay.
So the driving force, as I say, is, does it help? Does it genuinely help you?
Okay, that's it.
Now, my argument is pure NLP will help you. But in essence, we're all trying and testing new things. So it's a living art. It's not a dead art.
Okay. And this has been in my mind since long time. So what is the difference between new code NLP and classic code NLP?
Okay. That again is another fascinating question, because luckily, I'm not sure if this helps, but actually I've been on John Grinder's New Code NLP course. So I am certified in New Code NLP.
As well. Okay.
And I have to be careful, because this is my view, not John's view, but my view of the difference between normal NLP and New Code. New Code is much more respectful of people's unconscious processes.
Okay.
So, but to me, that doesn't mean that there isn't good things in old code. It's just a little bit of a way forward, because John Grinder came up with New Code NLP, Richard Bandler came up with Design Human Engineering, and to me, they're sort of both the co-founders' versions of coming up with a slightly different spin of what they did. I'm going to go back to, if it works, do it. And there's some good stuff in new NLP. There's some really good stuff in Design Human Engineering. There are some very good principles in the traditional NLP stuff. Please focus on outcomes, not on theory. Because NLP doesn't have any theory.
Yes.
And all the people that are coming up with these comments are assuming that NLP is true and is a theory. It's not. What we're interested in is approaches that give us results that we want.
And Michael, could you please suggest certain, few suggestions to develop good modeling skills?
Oh, sorry, some suggestions for modeling skills.
Modeling.
Okay, I think, and I may get my numbers wrong here, I probably have 4 approaches to modeling. Okay, so the first approach is stupidly simple: ask some questions.
Ask questions. Okay.
Ask questions, and the better we get at listening and asking questions, the naturally we get better at modeling. So let's not make it too complicated. Ask some questions, listen, and then reflect, and you've started the approach to modeling. So that's one approach. The second approach is what I call NLP strategies, which is where you go through the sequence that people go through to achieve any results, which is their internal. What's different in NLP strategies is people's internal sequences, what they see, what they hear, what they feel, how they motivate themselves to take action, but also what happens outside. And coming up with an almost scientific analysis of what people do in order to get the results they do is tremendously useful. So that's the second bit of modeling. The third bit of modeling I quite like is something called Robert Dilts logical levels. Now, John Grinder hates it as far as I can tell, but I still find it useful, which is where you ask, you've got somebody like, say yourself, you're somebody I want to model. I ask you questions about where and when you do it. I ask you questions about what you might do. I ask you questions about your capabilities, about your beliefs, about your mission, and they give me buckets of information that enable me to get to know where to go next.
Okay.
So I've always found that a very practical way of finding out more. It won't necessarily answer the questions, but it will give me a logical approach where I can find out what I need to know next, again, so I can build some models up. The last one I'm going to talk about is more the traditional deep trance identification, which is where you almost use your mirror neurons, or whatever you want to call them these days, where you act as if you're the other person. You almost let your own personality, you leave your own personality and body behind, you get into somebody else's body, and you actually see things from their point of view, and you get into their posture. You imagine the sounds are coming out of their voices coming out of you, and you play it as though you're getting the results that they're getting, as if you were them. It sounds crazy, but you pick up a lot of information. So there's a heap of different approaches to modeling, all of which help. And if I was to emphasize, as I say, it's as simple as just shutting up, because of course we have our own cognitive biases. And in essence, we have to be careful we don't let our biases stop model coming in. So we almost have to relax and I'd say ask questions and listen and let the information come in. The important thing about modeling then is testing it to see if it works, or testing it to find out in what context it works and what we need to do to change our models so they do work.
Okay.
So it's a continual exploration.
Yes.
But it's tremendously important. And I think if I wanted to get a last message over, modeling can be stupidly simple down to asking a simple question. If you were me, how would you do this? Okay, is probably the simplest modeling question. And providing you get some information out that helps you, it will help you go in the right direction to a much more formal, complex modeling exercise.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. That simplifies. So that's the reason NLP cannot be outdated.
No, absolutely, because we're always looking
Yes.
for new ways of doing things.
Yes. Yeah. So, Michael, could you please suggest few books on NLP where every NLPer you think?
Okay. Now I have to be a little bit careful here, because all my clients like different books.
Yes.
Some of my clients like reading, some hate reading. There's a total mix out there. So I am aware books are very personal. Okay. Some of the ones I suggest people to read are The Ultimate Introduction to NLP by Richard Bandler. It's very short, it's very easy to read, and it gets over to, in my mind, some of the key concepts. So that I really like. I happen to like, I've got to remember the name now. Sorry, it's just gone. It will come back when the interview is finished. The New Technology of Achievement, or something like that. It's one of the original books by Steve Andreas and that lot, and it's quite a good introduction book. I happen to like Magic in Practice, which is by Richard Bandler and Grant Thompson, which is about medical NLP, which I think is very good for helping people. Garner Thompson, very good for helping people understand. It was written for doctors actually, but to use it in a health context. So there are a couple, and there are a few others, but that's enough to get people started.
Okay. Thank you. And Michael, once the practitioner is course is done, people want to get started as a coach. So what are your advices to a person to be a good NLP coach?
Okay, I'm very simple on this. There are three things to be a good NLP coach. One, you have to look after yourself.
Oh, wow.
Because if you're not a role model, because in essence, as a coach, we're role models. We should be demonstrating what we're practicing. Now, it doesn't mean we have to have all our life sussed out, but we should be because people will pick up from us. Humans pick up from humans.
Yes.
So you don't have to do or say anything necessarily, and people will pick up from you. So we owe it to our clients to have got ourselves sorted out a little bit. So looking after ourselves and having our own life in order is where my view is we start.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is, and this is where I think most people will go wrong, or go horribly wrong, is that we learn by dealing with clients. The way you learn NLP is not the course. The courses we need, the courses are good, the training is great, but we learn most through our clients. Therefore, the sooner we have clients, the better.
Okay.
And many people they'll go on one course and they'll say they're not ready. They go on another course, they'll say they're not ready. They'll end up on the third course. But actually, it's your client work that will develop your skills,
Okay.
in my view. So you want to get out there practicing. You want to know enough so you won't harm people, and you'll always take people in a good direction. But you don't need to know too much to do that. And the third is you need some NLP skills, but that tends to be overplayed. So my view is make sure you look after yourself and you start with yourself. Get some basic NLP skills. And obviously, my view on the NLP training, treat it as lifelong training, not I've got to do 3 courses and then I know it. Almost do 1 course and then get some experience with people and then go back. So treat the learning as a life journey. And it's always good to practice with different people around the world because you learn more, but do it over time. Okay.
Thank you. That was
put a lot of skill. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it's the way life works. It's quite funny actually, because in NLP,
yes.
We're exploring maps and maps that work, and sometimes we get it wrong. But in essence, if you want to start a coaching business, your marketing is probably more important than anything else. So you need to model people that are good at marketing. And you need to model people that are good at marketing now, because the people that were good at marketing 10 years ago, what they did may not apply to today.
Okay, Michael, thank you. And Michael, so many techniques and so much information and on NLP. So what is your advice? Is it like how many techniques I should know, or like techniques and techniques and techniques? So what needs to, what does one needs to do to become proficient in NLP? It is related to your previous.
It's boring. It's practice, practice, and practice. And focus on how do you know you're getting results? This is a non-trivial question. Focus on outcomes, and even outcomes is a bad word now. So I have to be careful with this. Focus on results and how you're going to measure, how you're going to know whether your client has improved. In fact, I'm going to say more than that. It's not just on how your client has improved per se, it's how your client is working well in your client's environment. Because success is not the client getting better. Success, well, it is, but success is what impact is our clients having with the people that's important to them. Our job is to get our clients to do better with their wives, with their jobs, with this sort of thing. So the test isn't per se just the client. The test is the client producing better results with their stakeholders or the people they work with? And that's what we're really aiming at.
So it's not about the techniques and information.
The techniques are useful. The technique, right? I liken techniques like bits of equipment in the gym. Okay. If you go down the gym and you do, well, actually don't need technique, you do 20 press ups or you do 50 press ups, you will get stronger.
Yes.
If you practice various NLP techniques, you will become more proficient. But the important thing in the end, the techniques are a means of getting there. They're not the end result. The end result is you developing the skills yourself so you can do it almost intuitively. And actually, one of the interesting things is the people that have learned by doing too many techniques, you then have to get them to forget the techniques and to refocus on the client.
Okay.
Because where it goes wrong is people focus on the techniques and they try and force the client through the technique, which isn't the right way of doing it. The idea is to take wherever the client is, and it's a bit like a heap of paints, right? You've got half a dozen paints, which may be the techniques, but your job is to knowing to mix the paints so you get the masterpiece.
Beautiful. And can NLP be used in therapy, Michael?
Absolutely. My view is NLP is a modeling skill and therefore can be used across a whole wide range of areas. And remember that Virginia Satir or Fritz Perls or Milton Erickson, who were their first models, were very good.
Yes.
So some people argue about Fritz Perls, but we won't go into that. Basically, they chose models that were very good and very effective in the therapeutic setting. So absolutely yes, but don't confine NLP just to that area.
And since it's been 20, 30 years, NLP has been developed and a lot of changes have happened. How can one keep up with the latest developments of NLP, Michael?
Yeah, I don't think that's too difficult. Just practice.
Yes.
No, because your clients are here, your clients' challenges are in the here and now.
Here and now.
Okay? And every client you work with will give you new ideas. Because every client has come up with new ways of doing things and new ways of not doing things. So every client you work with will give you new ways of doing things and new ways of not doing things. Now, in addition to that, what you're doing, okay, which is talking to some people that claim or otherwise to be good at this stuff, okay, you will get some ideas. So go out and talk to different people in different areas. And again, one of the things that differentiates the people that get really good and the people that are less good are the people that have a certain amount of courage and try things in different contexts that may be a little bit scary initially. As I say, I'm a Marshall Goldsmith coach, and he has a little bit of a mantra when he chooses, when with my Marshall hat on, when we choose clients, we're looking for clients that have some, this is my version of it, have some ambition, there's something they want to achieve, have some courage, they're prepared to work outside their comfort zone, have some discipline, because most of the things in life that require results require discipline, and have some honesty. If people have a touch of those characteristics, they will tend to always do well. It's very simple for me. When I take clients on, if I take a client on and the client has those characteristics, they will almost invariably do really well. So in essence, if we look at that as ourselves, if we have a think about, what are some of the characteristics that will lead us to always get better? And you may want to look at what are the characteristics that lead people not to get better. And then we make a choice of which ones we follow. However, getting better does require a bit of work, and it does require courage, it does require discipline, it does require honesty, and it does require a bit of ambition.
That's true, Michael, because there is a good coach with good training, but the client is not involved with the change process, then nothing can be done. Correct.
My view is the growth is the responsibility of the client. Now, there are different ways of approaching it. In a coaching point of view, I cannot coach unless the client wants to get better. Now, I can tell people, I can bully them. There are other approaches, but in essence, it works much better if the client takes responsibility for their growth. And I'm then responsible for helping them grow.
Yes. Michael, this is my last question. So, there's one more argument or discussion going on that NLP is good to apply on others. NLP is good to coach others, but not on self. So what is your answer?
I think we should always start with ourselves. You see, I have this view that actually there is something ethical about using it to help us with our own challenges so that we have confidence in it before we use it on other people. However, I'm going to change what you've said slightly. With all this stuff, having somebody doing it on us is often easier than us doing it on us.
Okay.
Because in essence, if we're working with somebody, it's this focus on process or content. If I'm working with you, if I'm focusing on process and you're focusing on content, we're sort of splitting the workload, which means we produce much better results. If I'm doing it on myself, I'm having to focus on two bits of the brain that don't necessarily like working together. So it can be harder. And it may be once I've worked with lots of other people, I've got it worked out in my brain. So the patterns are there and I can do it. Certainly when I start, it may be harder to work for myself, but then I need somebody else to work on me, if this makes any sense. However, there are ways around it. Do recordings. We can do recordings and we can listen to the recording. So there are different ways of doing it. And also any meditative type practice, because meditation, to me, meditation and hypnosis are bedfellows. They have a different outcome or a different direction, but they're using the same tools. If you build in some good daily disciplines, you will actually be building on your NLP skills.
Wow. Lovely. Now I understand it is always better to get started with self.
Yes, I think so, because
Yes.
there's an ethics thing here. But in sales, it's the same thing. In selling, this is selling. The first sale is always to us. If we can't sell it to us, if we don't really believe that we're doing our clients good, then it's very hard to do it.
Yes, I agree with that. So that brings end my list of questions, Michael. Thank you very much for your time, and it's been wonderful having this conversation with you. And I hope whoever is watching this interview will definitely have good takeaways about so many confusions that were going on with what is NLP, like is NLP outdated, is this piece of paper certificate is important or not, modeling and all that stuff. So thank you very much once again, and it's been wonderful talking to you.
And thank you for asking the questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to switch the recording off. He says. This is where the technology breaks down for a second.
Yeah.
I've gone and lost my cursor.